Hey, it's Andrew back here at BTO Range in Conroe, Texas, and today on the tabletop we have a neat little target rifle from the early 1950s. This is a Mossberg Model 144, and this particular rifle was in the Mossberg line, or this particular set of rifles, if you will, was in the Mossberg line it was introduced in the catalog 1950 and it lasted till 1985, but it went through 4 different submodels throughout that range. So uh, probably probably not the best on camera today. Look like I've been shot out of a cannon because it's windy outside, but I'm old and my pronouns are don't care. So we'll just keep moving with what we've got. So the Mossberg 144. Prior to World War II, uh, obviously Mossberg had been in the 22 rifle business, and they had various target models, the Model 42, and they had quite a few heavier barreled target grade, I guess, if you will, 22s, and that culminated in the Model 44, Model 44B, and then the Model 44 US, which was actually contracted with the military, the U.S. military, between 1943 and 1945 as training rifles. So after World War II, there was some contract cancellations and there was some surplus, some contract overrun rifles, if you will. They were sold commercially after World War II. And then in 1949, the rifle was somewhat modernized, and the entire things were happening immediately post-war for Mossberg. I mean, up until that point, the president of the company had been Ivor Mossberg, who was Oscar's son. He had been the president upon his dad's death in 1938. Oddly enough, and I don't know this to be 100% fact, but it makes sense. His name Ivor and O.F. Mossberg originally got his start in the gun business with Ivor Johnson, so there may be a bit of a correlation there. But anyway, Ivor Johnson, 1938, he became president of Mossberg, or Ivor Mossberg became president of Mossberg until his death in February of 1945. And during that time period, he recruited a guy by the name of Walter Pearson from the Marlin Firearms Company. And his job, he was hired over as the executive vice president in charge of what they called external affairs. So he was the one that was in charge of getting Mossberg's name and Mossberg's product out to the shooting public and the buying public, and making more of a name for Mossberg than they had possibly had in the pre-war pre-war years. So he eventually Harold Mossberg became president upon the death of Ivor, and then when he died, actually Walter Pearson became president of Mossberg, first non-Mossberg individual to be a president of the company. And then chairman of the board until he retired in 1970. So he had a really long run with the Mossberg company. He was responsible for a whole lot of what Mossberg became, especially with the slide action shotguns. And we'll do a history piece on the Model 500 here, hopefully in the near future. In any event, immediately post-war, they were trying to revamp, if you will, their product line. They changed their numbers. The Model 44, which they had prior to and during the war years, became the Model 144, which is this rifle here. And we see it in development in 1949 and in the 1950 catalog at the princely retail sum of $31.95 in 1950. So what do we have here? We have a 26-inch relatively heavy barrel. We have an adjustable trigger. This trigger is an adjustable trigger. It's grooved on the face. We have this high comb stock, and we have these great peak sights. Now, when you're looking at these older Mossberg series rifles, they came with sights that were made by Mossberg during this time period. They're stamped Mossberg right here. This is a Mossberg S130 rear sight marked as such, and the S106 aperture front sight. Now, this originally had more than one aperture and had a hood on it when it was new. It's unusual to find that complete setup because they were, I don't really want to say fragile, but they were prone to being damaged with poor, I don't want to say, well, negligence, I'll say it, negligent handling or damage. Those apertures became lost to time. And a lot of times as the rifle we get into the 50s and 60s, people would remove this rear sight because they were going to use some type of telescopic sight. This guy does fold out of the way, though, in the event you wanted to use a telescopic sight. But a lot of people took them off, so it's kind of unusual to find the sight on there. So in any event, this one has it. So we have the S130, the S106 front, and we have this adjustable hand stop here from the factory. Let's go ahead and clear this rifle out. Make sure that we don't have anything lurking around in there that's going to cause us any kind of consternation or concern out there among the interwebs. So this S130 rear sight actually came out in 1947. We see it on the Model 44 US, or the commercialized version, I guess, of the 44 US. It replaced the Model S100 rear sight, which had been on the previous version of the rifle. So the reason I bring all that up is if you're evaluating one of these rifles for sale, it's important to know what sight should be on it, because that does make a difference as to value. And there's a lot of money, a lot of the value of the rifle on this particular gun, on these Mossberg bolt action 22s, a lot of the value lives in the sight. I mean, they're good shooters regardless, but if you have the rear sight, that adds a significant amount of value. If you were to buy this rear sight on the secondary market, it'd be over $100 easily. Complete, just as a complete sight. If it's in excellent condition, it could, even bring more. So bear that in mind when you're looking at it. But we'll get back to that in just a second. So there were a total of 4 models in the Model 144 throughout its production span to 1985. And in 1985, Mossberg did away with its whole 22 line, concentrated on shotguns, and then they came back with some imported stuff and things of that nature. But in any event, in 1954, we see this rifle change and become the Model 144 LS, Lima Sierra. So we changed the sights at that point. We went with Lyman sights. We went with the Lyman 17A and then the Lyman Model 57 MS rear sight. Completely different looking rear sight. We have some still photos we're going to put up to see the difference. Lyman made that sight specifically for the Mossberg rifle, and that's the correct Mossberg rifle for our sight for guns made from 1954 through 1960, and mark the 144 LS. So we also see some changes in 1957. We get a plastic. This is a metal butt plate on this early 50s gun. We see plastic with white line spacers start to come up. And in 1959, we see the adoption of what Mossberg called ACU Grove rifling, or Acro Groove, AC-KRO-GRUV, Acro Groove rifling. That would be marked on the barrel. And that was an attempt to compete with a lot of the marketing that Marlin was doing with their micro groove rifling. So Marlin had micro groove, so Mossberg had acro groove, or however you want to pronounce it. I guess acro groove would be correct. So in 1960, we see another change. We go to the 144 LSA, and we change our sights again. It's another Mossberg made sight, the Model 331. It's alloy instead of steel. And we see a bit of a change. A lot of people think it's a change in the chambering, but it's more of a change in the magazine than it is a change in the chambering. So in the LSA gun, the early guns from 60 to 63 are able to shoot short, long rifle, 22 short, long rifle. But there's a magazine change in 63 that makes it really a long rifle only magazine. Yes, you can single load shorts and it will work. It's just not going to feed well out of that magazine in the post 63 guns. So bear that in mind too. And the markings that Mossberg put in their advertising, in their catalogs, they don't necessarily differentiate between the LS, the LSA, the 144. It all kind of swoops together. So you have to kind of pay attention to the characteristics of the rifle and the barrel markings, right? And this gun, what you can see across the room on this early gun is this T-shaped bolt handle. This is specific to the 1950 through 1954 Model 144 with no letters. They changed that to a traditional type round bolt knob with the LS in 1954 when that came out. So we see another change. We run that 1960 gun, the LSA, to about 1976, 76, 77, and we see the 144 LSB come out. The LSB is easily discernible because the barrel is longer. We go from a 26-inch barrel to a 27-inch barrel, and it gets heavier. It's a full 15/16 or almost a complete inch in diameter. We have a straight stock. We have the white line spacer, and this stock has a cheek piece on it, which the LSB does not. So there's a differentiation there. And that's long rifle only. And those barrels are stamped LSB. Now, that never say always when you deal with firearms, because there's parts runovers or stuff that doesn't get marked. So everything was discontinued in '85. So that's a little bit of the history of the 144. Now let's evaluate the rifle and kind of figure out what these things you should pay for should you run into it. So 3 things we always talk about, right? Originality, scarcity, condition. They're not particularly scarce. I'm not sure how many were made of the Model 144, but you have to remember they were made from 50 to 85, so 35 years. They were making these rifles. They're not serialized, so there's not any kind of serial number chart. The best you can get as far as when the gun was manufactured is determining which model it is, which characteristics it has, and then you can kind of get, for instance, this rifle we know was made between 50 and 54. So we would look at the characteristics of the gun and make a determination roughly as to when the gun was made. So some things to look at. Obviously, we talked about the sights, right? The sights are huge. We have the sights on this gun. Now, we also have a Weaver side mount base that's been added here. It's been added fairly well. It's not super concerning. It does take away from the collectability of the rifle to a degree, but most of these rifles are still to this day being used as shooters more than collectors. Although there are Mossberg collectors, there's a Mossberg Collectors Association that I'm actually a member of. I think I'm a member of most of the Collectors Association. Pull the trigger, hold the trigger to the rear. You can remove the bolt out. You see the opposing extractors here under spring tension, firing pin. It's a fairly simple bolt assembly. So on this early gun, you should see this and not a round bolt now. So you got to remember that. So the part that, let's go ahead and clear this out also. This magazine, this 10-round magazine is not original. They came with a 5-round magazine. So this is a aftermarket 10-round mag. The good news is most of the time, unlike many other aftermarket magazines, most of the time these actually work. So that is really doesn't hurt it terribly value-wise. But one thing you want to always check on these Mossbergs is this plastic trigger guard piece here. This is a one-piece kind of a flowing thing with some finger grooves there. And they used the same basic style of trigger guard on many different models, both rifles and shotguns, over a long period of time, 30, 40 years. And they're not all the same. They are prone to get brittle, and they are prone to crack out and break out through here. So they are being remade, but they're not being remade necessarily that well. And they're kind of only one size fits all on the remade ones, and they're not going to fit well. They might, but it's a roll of the dice as to whether they're going to fit well on a particular model. So when you're looking at it, the hell? Oh, you have to make sure that the fitment is, you're looking for the fitment here to determine if this was original or not. And on some of them, not on this one, but on some of the shotgun models, there's actually a patent number cast into the side of this plastic that you would look for. So these are detachable swivels that came on the 144. The 44 did not have those. They were screwed in swivels. So this is missing its detachable swivel. And also, just like many of the other Mossberg bolt-action guns of the time period, there was a red and a green plastic indicator for fire and safe here embedded into the wood. And a lot of times one or both of those are missing like they are on this rifle. The good news is, Jesus, the good news is those are being remade. The red and green indicators are being remade. They're not expensive. It's just a matter of getting a little adhesive, a little Elmer's glue or a little wood glue, and just tapping those in there, and you're good to go with that. So a lot of that stuff is available in I talked about the Mossberg Collectors Association. A gentleman by the name of Vic Havlin, Havlin, and his wife kind of run that organization, and they have a website called Havlin Sales, Havlin Sales.com, and they kind of specialize in these older Mossberg parts. So they would definitely have the red and green indicators. They may at any given time, of course, these are not being remade. They may have a source for the sites, and people post up, hey, I have these Mossberg parts, or I'm looking for these Mossberg parts. So that may be a good source of those old original parts, as well as the usual suspects like eBay and other auction sites. So this is the original adjustable hand stop that came on this 144. That's a plus. You actually rarely see that still intact on these rifles. So once you look through all of those features, and then you look at the bore condition, and the bore on this is pristine and nice and bright and all that good stuff, and you look for presence of rust. These this bolt originally was polished bright here, so we have some discoloration from what 70 years of age there. So I have not seen one of these guns actually sell for more than $400. Not saying, I mean, I've seen a lot of people ask more than 400 of them, and there might be some individual sales of it, especially if it's boxed, or it has the original manual and paperwork and all that stuff with it. That would be obviously some extra money to it. So don't ever get a new phone the day before you're going to film a video. But anyway, so I would figure this gun to be in that $300 range. So it's in the upper. The fact it has the sights, it has the hand stop. The stuff that it's missing is relatively minor, and it's easily sourced. The biggest detractor is that Weaver side mount base on the side of it. That's the biggest detraction on the gun. So I would figure it'd be a $300 gun. And if you can get them for less than that, then you're in great shape. So that's the Mossberg 144, a really super target rifle. These guns, Elmer Keith, interestingly enough, Elmer Keith of all people, evaluated one of these for one magazine. I don't know if it was Rifleman or what magazine it was, but in 1950, and he was saying that these rifles are, he was shooting 1.5 inches at 100 yards with it. And that would have been with the peep sights. So the rifles are capable of better accuracy than most people shooting them, that's for sure. So the Mossberg 144, if you're looking for a good classic target rifle that doesn't break the bank, doesn't have Winchester 52 money associated with it, then it's certainly worth looking for. Could be a sleeper at your local gun shop or pawn shop. Hey, if you like what we're doing, hit that subscribe button. Pay no attention to the banjo tones from my telephone. It's kind of an East Texas thing, I guess. But hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let us know. Let us know in the comments what you think. We read all that stuff, believe it or not. And we really appreciate all the support you guys have shown to the channel. And we hope that you keep watching. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks.